What's up, guys? Brett Okamoto from ESPN. I'm joined today by UFC bantamweight Cory Sandhagen, who headlines this weekend's UFC Fight Night card against the former champion and former teammate of his, TJ Dillashaw. So we got a lot to talk about, Cory. I appreciate the time before you head out to Vegas tomorrow. This is your last day in Colorado, and then you head out my way, I guess.
Yep. Last day in Colorado. Gonna drill a little bit today, get my hair cut, get a little massage, and then I'm heading out towards you guys.
Is that you got any like pre-fight traditions? Are you superstitious at all? Do you always get the haircut? Do you have like sort of a routine before you leave?
I'm not really superstitious. I do always get a haircut because I look like a dork if I don't get my hair cut before. Because when my hair starts growing too long, I start to look like I'm part of the Brady Bunch or something. But no, man, I'm not a very superstitious guy. No, that stuff doesn't really bother me.
You just want to look good and look good, fight good. Yeah. I mean, a lot of guys like to get their haircut. If we believe what Embedded tells us, pretty much everybody gets a haircut before UFC fight week. You know, one thing I want to talk to you about, and maybe, man, maybe you're unique in this way, or maybe you just talk about it more, but your mindset is just, it's fascinating to me. I think it fascinated Rogan. You know, it's like some of these interviews when you talk about your mindset and you kind of, let's say, so when you're like 5 days away from the fight and you're starting to sort of get into like that kind of savage mode that you talk about, are you starting to feel that already, or does that not click until like right before the fight, basically?
Yeah, so I spend time doing it. I think that that's really important, is that you actually have to spend some time practicing it. I think that there's like a lot of things that we're kind of told as we're growing up about athletes that just straight up are not true. Like you either have it or you don't. Like, I think that that's a bunch of BS. I think that all of the great guys have created themselves into great guys, and sure, some of them had more natural abilities in some areas that requires you to be a good athlete, but I think a lot of them didn't, but they were able to catch it and work on it. And yeah, so it's been it's one of the harder parts is the mental part, or I shouldn't say harder parts, but it's one of the parts that definitely gets slept on, because we have all of these ideas about what great people are. And in my opinion, great people are created. They're not just handed the great card and said, hey, like, go ahead and go through life with this, you know, like that's not really the case. So I would say I practice it before sparring every single day, to where I make sure that regardless of how I'm feeling, whether I'm injured or just, you know, sore from the week or exhausted, I make sure that I can at least get myself to a level of focus that is fight preparation. Because, you know, in training camp, your body is not going to be good every single day, but I feel like I can always be focused, and I can always be highly aware of the things that I'm trying to execute, and it shouldn't really matter how tired I am on those days, and I should be able to do that. So it's practiced throughout all of camp. As we get closer to the fight, it becomes a little bit more of a first person type visualizations, where I'm putting myself in that space and then going and competing in that space, which again, like, needs a lot of practice. Like, I think it's total BS that every single day you're going to wake up and feel like fighting, even if it is fight day. I think that that's something that's just going to be something that happens. It happened in the Frankie fight for me. It's happened in other fights for me, where it's just this feeling of, man, I just, you know, I'm not feeling it today. And kind of over conquering that demon is super important. And there's a lot of different excuses that your mind will try to create for you to not be a winner. And I'm just a little bit better at listening to those excuses and writing them off as not me.
And some of that is, I mean, in your particular sport, you're talking about other professions, but in this particular sport, of course, you've talked about it, like that violent sort of aspect of it. Like, does it result in kind of almost like are there two versions of Cory? Or you have like split personalities? I mean, does the guy who walks into the octagon, is he that much drastically different than the guy I'm talking to right now?
Absolutely. It almost has to be, or else you're just going to walk around kind of an asshole your whole life, you know, like, and I've been in that space when I was trying to get familiar with that. Like, it leaked into life, and it became, now I'm just being this competitive jerk at all times. And that doesn't need to be the case. So, for me, like, during this week, every single morning will be that visualization. It will be creating myself into that like second version, or I guess in this week's, it's going to be my first version of me. Getting into that version of myself that is that doesn't care about anything else except for winning the fight. becoming that person, and then knowing that I have access to that person, and then I can kind of go throughout the rest of the day not feeling insecure about not having to be that person, if that makes any sense. It's almost like if it's later in the day and you feel bad about yourself for not working out, it's like, well, what should you do? It's like, well, I should probably work out in the morning, and then you don't need to kind of be insecure or feel weird or anything about later in the day when you're starting to feel those things. It's like, no, I already gave time to that this morning. I know that I have access to that, so I'm good. So that's kind of what it's developed into. But to be honest with you, in the beginning, when I was learning it, it leaked into life a little bit.
Huh. That's interesting. That's super interesting. And then, part of the what you've talked about in it sort of within this topic is like, studying ancient tribes and intimidation. And it's basically what it sounds like is like you're preparing yourself for war, which makes total sense. I mean, that's what you guys are doing, during a fight week. What do you think it's gonna be like this week in terms of, you're familiar with TJ, you're going to be around him, you guys might run into each other, that there's a potential of that, like, because of the such cerebral approach that you take. I mean, do you visualize those things too? Whereas, like, I might run into this guy, like we're going to go to war on Saturday and we might cross paths this week. Like, is there any kind of like psychological thing that you get prepared for during fight week?
Yeah, I do visualize that. I understand that I'm on my way to a battleground. That's how I see it. That's how I see the host hotel. That's how I see all of the things that we're going to be doing there. This is the battleground, and hostility lies behind every corner. And as kind of extreme as it may sound, no one can really be trusted that week. I don't really, I don't talk to people from other camps. I don't know who they're talking to, because the MMA community, especially at like this kind of higher level, is a pretty small world. And that's my feelings towards walking into a fight week, because this is the battleground. So there's only one day for battle, but if TJ wants to be hostile, then that will be the scenario. If he doesn't want to be hostile, then that will also be the scenario. I'm not the type of guy who's going to really go out of my way to try to intimidate people. I think that that's not something that is helpful for me. But I will go into fight week knowing that, the host hotel, the Apex, all of this stuff is the battleground, and that's how I treat it.
What kind of vibe are you expecting from TJ? And actually, I went back and watched some of the things that he said about this fight, and he's complimentary of you. Like he's said, like, I liked Cory, like we were cool, So based on everything that you're talking about, like this battleground thing, like, what if he's super friendly? Like you embrace that as well? Like, what are you expecting from him? And ideally, what would you want it to be, the vibe this week?
I don't care. He can be however he'd like to be. He's the opposition this week. And afterwards, maybe we can shake hands and be however we're going to be. Honestly, I don't even think, or I do my best, to not think even 1 minute past the fight. For this week, life ends right after the fight, and I don't really think too far past it. So, but it's up to him, man. Like, if he is very friendly, okay, that's probably a manipulative tool, in my opinion, where I've seen guys do that in the past, where it's like, let me be really friendly to this guy. But at the end of the day, really what we're doing is, on Saturday night, the two of us are going to try to hurt each other as badly as possible. Like, no one goes in there being like, let me just, 30-27 them. It's like, no, that's not what we're going in there for. We're going in there for like highlight knockouts. We're going in there for bonuses. We're going in there to win. We're going in there to hurt each other. And regardless of how that person treats you that week, that is going to be the scenario. So it's all kind of just smoke and mirrors, in my opinion.
What did you think about TJ's style? Like, particularly like when he won the championship, he was an underdog to Renan Barão, and I think everybody really honed in on, man, this guy's style looks different. It's smart. It's he had a great relationship, obviously, with his head coach, Dwayne Ludwig. Like, when you were watching that, did you what did you think? How special did you think his style was? And on top of that, you had kind of seen it in the practice room as well, right? Did you think he was on to something like really groundbreaking in MMA, or what were your thoughts kind of as you watched sort of him unfold as a champion?
I think TJ is a really great competitor. I think he's obviously a great athlete. As far as like TJ's skills go, and honestly his mentality is, I don't have any, I'm complimentary in that way. I think that that's what TJ is good at. Is he's good at turning himself into a killer, going out, being a really good athlete, and fighting really well. Like the guy's a good fighter. As far as the way that I feel about it is, of course, I feel like I'm better than he is. But I think it's not like TJ. I think as martial artists, we all develop our own style through things. We all see things that we like. We try to incorporate that into our game. Sometimes we something really comes really naturally for some people in their bodies, where other things are going to be really unnatural for other people in their bodies. So we're all just kind of figuring it out. And I think TJ has done a really good job of figuring out what works inside of his car. You know, what type of motor he's put in his car is good.
Mm-hmm. I'm not going to ask you a ton of questions about, his suspension. I think that you both have talked about it. It's he served his suspension now. It actually ended months ago, and now, but it is his first fight back. And I do wonder that, again, speaking so much to like the psychological part of the sport, do you see it as a weakness? You just complimented his ability as being a competitor, but a guy who takes that and did what he did, do you see it as a potential weakness, or how do you view it just in terms of that decision he makes in terms of what it means for him as a competitor?
Yeah, I guess I don't really see it in. There's lines that you don't cross in the sport. Like you shouldn't try to cheap shot people. You shouldn't go outside of the rules, and you should while you're in there, and you definitely shouldn't do anything that is illegal in order to give you a huge advantage in a fight. So as a competitor and just kind of as a person, really the only uh, word that I can kind of come up for it is, it doesn't matter. It doesn't bother me. TJ has to live with TJ's decisions. I have to live with my decisions. But it is like a little bit like gross, in my opinion, to like put yourself in an illegal advantage in a one-on-one combat scenario in something that you really love. So it's just, I mean, it's gross. If there's a word for it, it's kind of just gross. But like I said, TJ lives with TJ's decisions, and he has to do that, not me. Honestly, I don't really need any more motivation to hate someone or want to beat someone up, other than the fact that TJ's trying to take my dream away from me. I've been working a really long time to get to where I am, and he's trying to take it away from me. And I don't really need to give myself the narrative of, oh, he's a cheater, oh, he's this and that, and people are calling him that. I don't need that. The only motivation I need is TJ's trying to take something from me. He's trying to hurt me, and that's it. That will make me alone try to knock him out.
You guys were supposed to do this earlier this year, obviously, and the fight got pushed back. And I heard you talk about like you were ready to go. I mean, let's get this thing on the books. And part of the reason why it maybe took a little bit longer than it potentially could have is that they wanted to keep it a 5-round fight. They wanted to keep it a main event. Both you and TJ wanted that as well. To me, and by the rankings alone, it suggests this to me, but also just the fact that they really wanted this to headline a card. This is a number one contender fight, right? I mean, do you feel like you win this fight, the title shot is next?
I think absolutely. I think there's, I think I've done my part. I'm not a guy that likes to feel like he deserves things. I think that you earn things, and I think I've created that confidence in me to be like, I have earned a title shot if I beat TJ.
Mm-hmm. And how do you feel about just the timing of it? I mean, we still don't know exactly when Sterling and Jan is going to happen, but if you could kind of map it out, title shot is next after TJ. When would it take place? Where would it take place? Because I think we're kind of hopefully still coming into a situation where you could have fans at a situation where you win a championship fight. And who do you think it's against? Do you think it's against Sterling, or do you think it's against Jan?
I think Jan's going to win that fight against Sterling, unless Sterling can pull something out of his hat. But I think that we all kind of see how the fight went the first go around, where Jan was, I think, pretty decisively winning. So I think Jan will likely win that fight, and I'll fight Jan wherever Jan wants to fight, whenever Jan wants to fight. And the same goes for Sterling if Sterling wins. Whenever Sterling wants to fight, as long as it's not going to be one of these like, hey, let's fight next year type things where, I know that the guy had neck surgery or whatever, but I hope that they're not too comfortable in their lives where they want to just push this thing back as far as they can. But again, if they do that, that's only a little bit longer that I get to spend in the gym getting better.
Mhm. And you said that you've been working a long time to realize this dream and to reach the top of this sport. Have you given much thought about, like, what are your long-term goals, Cory, beyond winning a championship? Do you want to be one of those guys that defends it 15 times? You know, do you want to be a guy who moves up in weight eventually and captures multiple weight classes? Like, when you think about, like, and it might be a weird question to ask you because you're still young, and I mean, you're still just getting into a championship fight. But when you were, you know, when this is all said and done, do you have those sort of like long-term goals already kind of set in your head?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to see yourself looking past a goal that you've really wanted for a really long time. It's kind of hard to look past just a world title because that right now to me feels like everything. But I have given it thought, man. Like I kind of want everything. I want Fighter of the Year. I want SB. I want that stupid little 5-star video game award that people are getting. Like I want everything. You know, I tell myself after I lost against Aljamain Sterling, as unrealistic as it might sound to people, I'm not losing any more fights in my career. I'm going to retire, not losing any more fights. And I want to be the greatest bantamweight, undoubtedly, to have ever have done the sport. And I want people, when they think of MMA, to think of me. And I know that that may sound a little bit out there, being as I haven't done as much in the sport by my standard, and I know how it sounds, but I definitely can't really have in my head any other goals other than that because I'm not going to be the best version of myself, which is ultimately my biggest goal, which is to be the best fighter that I potentially can be, and I really believe that I can do all of those things also.
Yep. Last thing I'll ask for you, and it's kind of funny because you don't seem like the type of person that would really care what other people would say. But I went back and watched some of your stuff after the Frankie Edgar fight, and like almost immediately, you know, when they put that little headset on you and you were talking to DC, you had like kind of a little one-liner where you were like, I kind of wanted to show my wrestling because everybody knows I suck at that, and it was like it was tongue in cheek, you know. It's like, are you bothered by the fact that people think that, like, because of what Aljamain Sterling did to you, that that's just the way to beat Cory Sandhagen, that once you're thrown in there with another wrestler, that that's going to happen again?
Absolutely, absolutely. There's an ego that I have that is I don't want anyone out there thinking that anyone's better than me. And right now, of course, people think Aljamain Sterling is better than me, and people think that I'm lacking in some areas. And I don't want people to think that. I don't want people to think that I suck, man. Like I really see myself as one of the greatest in the world. And I know that it will take time to prove that to people. Those are just empty words. Every fighter in the entire world has said things like that. But there's an ego inside of me that wants everyone to know who the alpha male is and who the king of the jungle is. And it's important to me that people know that.
Well, you got a chance to prove it again this weekend, UFC Fight Night. Looking forward to this main event. Been looking forward to it for a while now. So travel safe out here to Vegas, man, and we'll see you soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks a lot, Brett.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN Plus.